Greetings, nerds and virgins. Dan Hooker versus Paul Felder at UFC Fight Night 168, the main event. This is going to be a 5-round fight, I think Dan Hooker is going to win this fight. I think it's going to be pretty easy for Dan Hooker. I don't know if he can finish him because Paul Felder can take a shot. Like, we've seen him taking the best shots from Mike Perry, and Paul Felder has a chin on him. So I don't know if Dan Hooker can finish him, but I see him just winning the fight. I think Dan Hooker is more dynamic with his strikes. He uses calf kicks, he uses head kicks, knees to the face. He finished multiple fights with knees to the face, and he is very accurate with his shots. He can take a shot as well. And he has very good submission game and wrestling, as you've seen from Ally Quinta fight. I picked him to win against Ally Quinta. A lot of people in Korea picked Ally Quinta to beat Dan Hooker because they didn't know who Dan Hooker was. But Dan Hooker is like a dark horse in this division. I don't know if he can beat Khabib Nurmagomedov because Khabib's wrestling, I think, will be too overwhelming for Dan Hooker. But I see him beating, except for maybe guys like Conor McGregor or Khabib, I think he can beat a lot of guys in the lightweight division. And for Paul Felder, I think he is a very tough fighter. Like, he is a very tough fighter, but I don't think he's a very skilled fighter. Like, he has pillow hands. If you can't finish James Vick, if you can't KO James Vick given 15 minutes in the octagon with him, that's just not impressive at all. Like, give me 5 minutes with James Vick. I can just KO him stiff and send him to another planet, okay? Paul Felder, he was able to hurt James Vick a couple times in the fight, but he was never able to KO James Vick. And at this point of his career, James Vick has no chin. Like, anybody can put James Vick out cold with any shot, but Paul Felder, he was trying to KO him, but he couldn't because he has pillow hands. Paul Felder has pillow hands. Yes, he did finish some fights like Charles Oliveira with elbows, but Charles Oliveira is a glass jaw. He's been finished like so many times. Stevie Ray, he KO'd him with elbows, but Stevie Ray also has a glass jaw. He finished Danny Castillo with a spinning back fist, and Danny Castillo has also glass jaw, okay? I mean, they always show this highlight reel of him KOing Danny Castillo with a spinning back fist, and I hate that. Stop showing me that because that's so outdated, and Danny Castillo has no chin, so anybody can KO Danny Castillo with any shot, so not impressive at all. I'm not underestimating Paul Felder, but the difference between Paul Felder and Dan Hooker is that Dan Hooker, there are many fights that Dan Hooker finishes, and sometimes he finishes very easily. He wins very easily and decisively and emphatically, but all the Paul Felder fights, even the ones he wins, he struggles to win. It took like less than 1 minute for Justin Gaethje to KO Edson Barboza, but it took 30 minutes for Paul Felder to win 1 out of 2 fights against Edson Barboza. That's very unimpressive, and he's like throwing everything with his every shot, but he just doesn't have the power. So I don't think he'll be able to hurt Dan Hooker. But it's a 5-round fight. Both fighters have never experienced 25 minutes inside the octagon, so that could be a huge factor because we don't know if one of the fighters would get tired in the championship rounds. But I just see Dan Hooker being more dynamic. I just see him being more powerful, so I think he's gonna win by decision, but he could finish him. Paul Felder has very good chin, but if he connects a clean and accurate chin while Paul Felder is coming in like the way he did against Gilbert Burns, he could drop him because Paul Felder will come in kind of reckless, and I think he could capitalize on that. But I just see Paul Felder just losing this fight. I never see him becoming a champion in this division. I just see him as a gatekeeper. So I'm sorry, Paul Felder, but you're gonna lose this fight. Dan Hooker is gonna win this easily, everybody.